Gestur minn í dag heitir Arjan Wilmsen og hollenskur freelance ljósmyndari sem heimsækir Ísland reglulega. Arjan býr við 3 landamæri og því auðvelt fyrir hann að ferðast og mynda. Hérna heima hefur hann unnið með Pál Jökul ljósmyndara og unnið með honum á hans workshops, ásamt því að hann myndar árlega kvikmyndahátíð á Vestfjörðum. Þar sem Arjan talar ekki íslensku þá þátturinn á ensku. Ég vona að hafa gaman að þessu.
Just want to talk to you about like photography and what stuff you use and what you shoot and what you use to shoot and stuff like that. Because I've noticed that even that you're from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
You always seem to find yourself in Iceland again.
Exactly, yeah, as much as I can, yeah.
As much as you can, yeah. So I'm just wondering, what is it that is pulling you towards the Icelandic cold?
Well, especially the cold, the Netherlands
really?
Is, there's people who are like, I like sunshine, and for my holiday or whatever, I like to go to the beach and spend time in the tropics or whatever. But for some way, physically, that's not my kind of weather. My body starts shutting down when it's like plus 20 degrees or something like that.
Wow.
And no, that's more of a joke, but I genuinely really love the colder climate for some reason. I just feel more comfortable in my skin, actually, like I don't know. It's just the fresh air, I think, and being able to do some physical stuff outside without bursting out into sweaty stuff straight away. And our summers here in the Netherlands, they got really more extreme and warmer than what they used to be.
Yeah, I saw some photo from you that, 40 something degree.
Oh yeah, even more. I think this year was a little bit better than last year, but last year and the year before that, we had like 40 plus for 2 or 3 weeks in a time without any wind, no clouds, no rain. We had crops failing nationwide.
Oh, wow.
Wildfires in the Netherlands as well. And we're still like a swampy country, lots of water around, but we had our nature going up into flames. So it's been, the whole dilemma with climate change and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go into depth all that much about that, but I see it happening around me, it's getting so warm. And so why Iceland? Yeah, landscape photographer, and always before I went to Iceland, I was in Norway and Sweden and the Nordic countries already.
Oh, nice.
To combine these things like the weather and the landscapes as well. Yeah. My first time in Iceland was actually 2016, so not that.
Oh, really?
Ago. 4 years in the summer, yeah. And I think a lot of photographers have this when they first set foot in Iceland. And my first trip was like 2 weeks, and I caught the bug. Like, yeah, this is the place where I want to be more and do more photography and stuff like that. And I've gotten some friends along the way by visiting every time, and that's also a reason for me to visit now. It's more than just going to shoot my photos. It's also meeting some friends and being taking part in all the things that I've gotten built up.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you working on a workshop with Pál Jökul, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You've been doing few workshops, I think. How many are there now?
Yeah, Paul is doing them for quite some time already, since he's a well-experienced photographer, and he's a little bit older than you and me. So he's been in the game for a while, and I started working with him 2 years ago, like that, just by chatting to each other and maybe like brainstorming on some ideas. And obviously this year we hoped to be better. We had nothing together as a workshop, but we're not the only ones in this situation. So there's that. But last year we did some tours in the Faroe Islands and in Iceland as well. And hopefully next year, at some point, we will be back to doing a handful of workshops together. I mean, he's also doing day tours and Northern Light stuff, like night trips and things like that with his clients.
Yeah.
And for me, that's of course impossible, I guess. I wish I could come over for 1 day.
If only, yeah.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. So there's like a couple of tours we do together, and if they sell, then I'm in Iceland again for that. But we also do them in Faroe Islands and in Norway. And,
yeah, I've actually seen a couple of those. I've seen photos from those tours, and that made me really want to visit Faroe or the Faroe Islands. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they call it Faroe.
Yeah. I had a friend back in the day. One of my best friends growing up. He was half Faroese. Yeah, I was trying to say it in the language, the native language, and I learned a little bit in the Faroe, and it's, quite easy to understand if you're Icelandic, and probably Danish also.
Yeah.
Also, but they're a beautiful country.
Yeah, very much. I think the language is a mix of those you just mentioned, like Icelandic and lots of, well, maybe not lots, but quite some Danish influences, and maybe some like Scottish, Celtic. It's still a bit close to that as well in the way, the traditions and language, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, the way it's written, I think for the untrained eye, it looks like Icelandic, like 99% of it.
Yeah, for an Icelander, the language looks like you're just taking a bunch of Icelandic words and put them together just randomly.
So Iceland on steroids, or drunk Icelandic, yeah.
Drunk Iceland, yeah, definitely drunk Iceland.
Yeah. I think the Faroese also feel like that, like they're drunk Icelandic, drunk Icelanders, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
All right, man. So when you're traveling, well, I want to know what gear you're taking with you, because I know you have probably a lot of gear. And do you take it all, or do you just pick and choose?
That's a good question, because that's always like a thing, because you don't want to overpack with. I'm not the kind of guy that brings everything, because I hate being around with too much stuff, hassling in the field and carrying this and that. But at the same time, you don't want to leave anything at home and you find out like, oh, I should have brought this lens or whatever.
Yeah.
So I always end up bringing more than I planned on, and which is a good thing. And I think it's part of what we do, like that. It's just has to happen. And
that always happens.
A couple of years ago, I probably brought like lenses and stuff that I never took out of the bag, and at the end of the trip I was like, why did I fill up this space in my camera bag or travel gear with this lens that I never took out? So I got a little bit better at deciding. But that's also because it took me quite some time to get a line of lenses that works, like wide angle and mid-range and a telezoom. I'm shooting with a Nikon D500, which is a crop camera, but it's I think performance-wise, it is obviously still a crop camera, but it's close to full frame with all the internals in that one. Has the same autofocus system as the D5, the full frame flagship from Nikon. Has a ISO performance is, I think, unparalleled for a crop sensor camera, at least for the Nikons. It's the best one. I had a 7000 series before, and I have some friends around me that use other, actually also full frame cameras like the D750, and it's performance-wise, it's quite similar up to that. And there's probably going to be some disadvantages for using a crop for landscape photographer, as any half-serious landscape photographer knows. But I think, in the end, it comes down to knowing your equipment and knowing its limitations and where to use what type of settings and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And so far, I've never run into any major issues, at least with my crop camera underperforming for my landscape shots. So there's always a way of controlling the triangle, the shutter speed, and all this stuff.
That is just spot on. Yeah. Because I'm just gonna show you many of my favorites or best pictures are actually just shot on this bad boy here.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I mean, if I were to sell it today, I'm not sure what I'd get, but then again, it's just a tool. It's a camera that helps.
Yeah, and I'm quite allergic to allergic and interested in it as well. You know, there's like new cameras out now. Nikon just released the Z6 and Z7 II series. It's like a full frame mirrorless. They look beautiful. If I had the money, I'd buy both of them, obviously, but I don't have the money, and maybe that's why I'm thinking this way. It's like my D500, which is right here. Let me grab it. It's still perfectly up to date and works fine, and
nice
20 mil on it right now.
Oh, nice.
And the main reason why I'm still on crop is because I started out with crop and I bought a couple of lenses for it, and the changing point to go full frame with having to, if you want to do it properly, having to invest in all the new glass as well was just too expensive for me at that point.
Yeah, it's really expensive, like changing the economy, like going from one brand to another.
Also that, but also if you go from crop and you have like 3 or 4 lenses, these lenses are probably, you know, built for the sensor size, and then if you go full frame, they end up pretty much useless with the vignetting and the crop factor. So that means buying 2 or 3 lenses as well, and that, for me, in my case, if I were going to do that, I'll do it in a proper way, and that's the amount of money for that I never felt like spending all at once or even gradually. So I settled on the best crop sensor in the Nikon range that I could go for, and this is still the D500. It's 4 years old right now, but it's still it's quite good. Also,
it works.
4K video. Yeah. So, you know, I do some video with it as well. Terrible autofocus though with Nikon. it's useless. It's absolutely useless.
Whoa! All right. It's useless.
But yeah, it hunts. It makes noise. It has no clue where to do for stuff. It's like Nikon really dropped the ball on that. But
I see.
In a way, all the video I do with my Nikon is on manual focus, and I think that gives me, you know, maybe not an advantage, but it keeps me busy, like thinking. And makes me work a little bit harder for it compared to a good autofocus system, which I'd like to have at some point. But now I'm doing it all by myself, and I think this helps in understanding your gear as well. Yeah, you know, that's a camera with a good autofocus, I think.
Yeah, that camera would put a dent in your budget.
Yeah, also that. Yeah. So, you know, that's why I'm still on crop, and I'm still liking it, and I now have a good set of lenses with it. This 10-20 that was on. And I have a 1755 f2.8.
Nice.
Which is basically Nikon's 2470 only adapted for the crop sensor size. And then the Sigma 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8. So, you know,
nice.
the three lenses you'd need.
Yeah. Like the Holy Grail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have some vintage lenses and a fisheye lens, but that's just nothing I consider like, this is fun stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's just for, I mean, fisheyes are always fun to play with, but this is not what you would usually take using in a shoot, for professional shoot.
No, not so much for landscape photography. I've used it on events like music concerts and stuff like that. I come from a music background where I play in hardcore metal bands.
I heard.
You know, where there's like a band of 4 or 5 guys on stage in somewhere in a basement in a suburb of Paris with the ceiling as high as their head, so you can stick your camera like right in their face and put a flash on it with a slower, little longer exposure, and the fisheye makes for these very dramatic and really cool photos for that type of music and scene. So I've used that quite a lot for that. And the D500 is also quite nice for that. The burst on it quite fast. 10 frames per second in RAW with a limitless buffer, I'd say.
Ooh.
So for concept photography, it's quite interesting. It's quite nice. And also, I know a lot of bird photographers use this one as well, the D500, because of the crop. They have a little more range.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And then the ISO performance is not as, it's quite good for a crop camera. Yeah. I don't know how high it is native, but somewhere like 500, 12,000, something you never use. But yeah, it goes quite high up, and it's usable up to 10, 12,000, I think, which is quite high also. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your work, and I'd say you're definitely putting it to test. I mean, your photos are amazing. So
thanks a lot. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about this year, actually, since we're talking about gear.
Yes.
What do you think about these cameras that are coming out? Especially these. I mean, the Sony and Canon have been like the front runners, maybe.
Yeah. That's where I get back to what I said before. I do follow the new camera that comes out, and I'm always like sitting on top of my wallet, ready to spend money on something. And then I'm not, it's personally, if I would have the money right now to go and pick a recent camera, we talked about it before, I'll buy the Fuji X-T4, I think.
Yeah.
Because I also have a Fuji X-T10, which is a couple of years old, with 3 lenses: the 1855 f2.8, 35mm f1.4, and 55-230 f5 point something. Not as interesting, but these other 2 lenses are quite nice. And I think if you bundle them with the X-T4 that was released last year or early this year, that'd be a nice investment, I think. And I always keep one eye on Sony and Canon for me if I was going to make a switch. And I think personally I'd go for Sony. And I'm not always up to speed with what the last model is. I think now it's the A7C2 or something. What's the latest?
For Sony, they are the latest is A7C. It's gonna be a full frame but compact camera.
Yeah, I've seen it around like on some internet stuff, and that looks quite promising. And I also know that the whole photography world freaked out over the Canon. Correct me if I got the number wrong, but the R5, what is it?
Yeah, that will be, and still are. They are still freaking out.
Yeah. There's I know some guys also from Iceland that were like, oh, this camera, yeah.
It has 8K video.
Yeah, that's quite ridiculous. Yeah.
8K. I mean, whoa.
Yeah. If you buy this camera, you need a new computer, a new room, a new
yeah.
computer at least to work with these files, I think.
My computer would not handle 8K footage.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
No, and that's also the problem with, if you imagine, let's say you have all the money in the world, and every half year or every year, these top brands, Sony, Canon, Nikon, and let's throw Fuji in there as well. They bring out a new camera, and you buy them. You also need to upgrade your computer, and you also want to bundle them with a new set of lenses and
hard drives.
Exactly, storage. So the money is not only, hey, I bought a new camera. It's like, you're gonna spend the rest of the year suffering from this choice. So
it starts with the camera, then you have the lenses, then it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds.
Yeah. So I try to keep up a little bit with the new products, with the stuff they are creating. Like the 8K video is again like a next step from the revolutionary 4K we had, and I'm interested in it, and I like to follow it, but not so much from a consumer point, because I'm sticking with my 4-year-old crop camera that delivers for me with my like my MacBook is all I need, and I'd rather spend my time and energy being out than planning stuff, and and also my money, obviously.
Yeah, also.
Yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, because I think I was like going away with it, is like about the new camera gear. I'm impressed with the Fuji X-T4 with the IBIS. I think for video that would be a camera I'd be very much interested in. I was quite close to getting a not a sponsored deal, but or like a test review deal with Fuji Netherlands. They were going to maybe have me try it for a while.
Okay.
Actually, I'm still working out these things with them, but they were the agreement was going to be to use it on my workshops.
Okay.
And sat at home, so maybe next year something like that can happen still for me. But
I hope so.
Yeah, and probably next year there's something else from Fuji as well. I've seen they released the XS10. No, what's it called?
Oh,
a newer one.
Yeah, sorry.
It's like spec wise, it's like they've always done the XT3, 4, and the 2s, and then they have the 10s and 20s and 30s. And this would be the XT40, only they named it differently this time. I think it's called the XS10, and it's basically the mini XT4. Like
yeah.
The step below that one, and looks like an interesting camera, but it has no weather stealing, and these are like aspects of it that I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna buy it because same as you live in Iceland and you shoot there. Obviously, we need our weather stealing on our cameras.
Yeah, quite badly. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, all right. Talking about Iceland again, tell me. I know you shot a lot of things here in Iceland, beside the workshop with Paul and landscape. You were shooting what last year? Something in the Westfjords, right?
Yeah, there's a film festival run by a friend of mine. I'm going to try and pronounce his name in the Icelandic way.
Go for it.
He's called Eyþór Jóhannsson.
And good.
He lives in Flattery in the Vestfjords.
Nice.
Yeah. He is a multi-talent. He does a lot of stuff, and one of the things he does is, together with a friend, let's also try and pronounce his name, Arsar. He lives in Reykjavik, and they are two friends from the film academy back in the day, and they are both filmmakers and in that world quite a lot, and they have visited quite some film festivals throughout Europe with their own work, and they had the idea to make a film festival themselves where the focus is on comedy films, because film festivals can be quite arty and stuff like that, and when there's like serious films and all that stuff, which is nice, of course, but they wanted to give a twist to that. And I think the first year they did it was 2016. And back then I got in contact with Eyþór and we became friends. And along the way, we decided that it was a good idea for me to document this festival. And I've done it twice now, last year and the year before. And was going to do so also this year. But for obvious reasons, this got canceled. Yeah. And it's it's a weekend in Flattery. Where there's like movies being shown in an old fish tank there, just out of town, and the local pub gets involved with some music in the evenings, and there's some catering throughout the day, and the whole town participates, as you'd expect. How things go in the Westfjords. It's a beautiful destination in the first place, but also a nice place to be with all these like-minded people just working to make this festival a very nice time, basically.
It sounds brilliant.
Showing, it's amazing. I think even I've shot quite some things in my career or my photography and stuff, but I generally think this festival is like one of the best things I've done, and hopefully will keep doing for my photography, and maybe not as much the photography, because it's capturing an event. It's like people watching a movie, and there's like a live band in the evening. It's challenging in that way that I want to deliver, but there's nothing like crazy going on photography wise. But just being there and having to, being in the position of showcasing this festival to the world for my friend and with my friend is it's more of an honor to me than a job as well, if you know what I mean. Like, it's brilliant to wake up here in the morning, get in the plane and drive to Flatby and be there for a couple of days and spend the time with my friends and shooting the festival. It's the highlight of the year almost. Yeah.
All right, you sold me on this festival. I will definitely be visiting next year. I can picture it now.
Highly recommended. And I think for you being Icelandic, you would really get the. How you guys are as Icelanders when there's like a fun event and when there's like a drink in the evening and a good time, how things can go. So exactly. Yeah. I had a couple of headaches and Flatby in my life. Let's say it like that.
Let's leave it at that. All right. Yeah. All right, man. So what I want to do to like finish this episode off, I'd like to ask the photographers about little tips and tricks. Let's say you meet someone who was just starting out. What would you if you have one advice, what would you say?
I think actually here in the Netherlands I work as a social care worker as well, and I guide people with a little bit of the social and society stuff, helping them out here and there. And recently I got a new client who's a 19-year-old girl who just started a photography academy here in the Netherlands. And she's very, very eager to learn, and I think she has the talent and the eye for it, but she's like wanting to be on a certain level straight away and like deliver straight away. And I'm like, you have the time, you're quite young still. And so to bring back the question to that is, I tell her just to go out as much as she can, and don't worry about the few shots that might be out of focus or underexposed or I need to. She's also thinking like, I need to buy the best camera that will help me to become a better photographer. And she's only been taking pictures for a few weeks.
I see.
And I'm trying to talk her out of this idea, because of course, buying a better camera will make the technical challenges a little bit easier, but it will also take away the opportunity for you to actually learn them, I think.
Yeah, that's well put, I would say.
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know with what camera you started out with, but I started out with a very basic, like a Nikon D40. It's like ancient. It's like a rock now. It's like, it's still in my closet, and I'm never going to throw it away because I have some
sentimental value.
Yeah, it's 6 megapixel, and it's like a very limited. Yeah. I'm talking 2005 now or something like that.
Damn.
But I shot with that for the first 4 or 5 years, and that camera taught me the triangle ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and it has has given me the opportunity to learn my compositions, and any camera will do that. So what I tell her, or what I would tell to any new photographers, like, don't focus too much on your equipment, just use it and go out and try to look at telling the story of the things you shoot. If you're a landscape photographer, look for interesting compositions and lines. If you're a portrait photographer, try to portray the person or whatever it is you want to portray in a little different way, and try to find your style that way. And if you get this down, the camera equipment will follow. I think,
definitely.
It's only part of what you do. And there's a saying, the best camera you have is the one you have with you on the right moment. So
I agree. I
quite live by that as well, and probably tomorrow there's going to be an ad on my computer with a new camera, and I'm going to be like, oh, I want to buy it. But then on Saturday, going to go out with the camera that I have and shoot a photo that I'm happy with, and then the circle is round again. I'm like, okay, this is what I need. This is okay. So,
I see. So it's like that. It's like a circle. Like I want to buy stuff. You shoot stuff with your camera, and you're happy. Yeah. It gets the job done, and even more than that. So
yeah, exactly.
The saga continues.
Exactly. Just keep going out, I guess, with the camera, and that's all. That's all it takes.
All right, man. Before we go, where can people find your work?
I am like any modern photographer on Facebook, Instagram, and also on YouTube. They can find me by my handle and everywhere, which is Dedication Photography.
Gonna put it here.
Gonna put it right there. Yep. So yeah, just type it in Facebook and in Instagram, and you'll get to see my work. And my website, dedicationphotography.com, is there also. Has the workshops on it, and try to update it as much as I can with new shots from the trips I've made. Last trip in Iceland was August this year, so I have some images coming up still, I think.
Oh, nice. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and I hope I talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you, and it was my pleasure. And let's talk again soon. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Hey, you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.